You guys are going to get off easy. I have no slides.
He's on the road a lot.
We are, but I just really kind of wanted to hopefully maybe turn this into more of a conversation and a discussion, because the folks at Hearst and Michael at Journal, I have all the data that, he had up, that they both had up with regard to day parts and when people are tuning in via Facebook and social, and it starts at 4 a.m. and so we don't really need to go over that again. But the effort that, as Jim said, I started August of last year, and we actually noticed our mobile page views eclipse our desktop 2 years ago. And we realized that so much of what that growth actually was based on where the majority of our 34 markets are, where we have the television stations, because we get a lot of storms down there. And the technology essentially had been rebuilt with 4G. And so the ability for people to actually access our stuff via that cellular bandwidth went through the roof. And we also have a number of very small markets that Evansville, Indiana, for instance, is one of our highest adopters on the mobile side. Well, it's very rural. They don't have a lot of, cable companies, so to speak, out there. So this is how they consume the news. So we did a research presentation or a research project a year ago. And it really confirmed more. It wasn't any big light bulb moments or anything like that. But more than anything else, it just confirmed what we were seeing within the data that we had. But we realized that even though we had surpassed and we kind of had some technology benefits on our side, that we weren't really making a focus with respect to digital. It was there, but it was not, it was kind of a station by station thing. And it really relied heavily on the engagement of the news director and the general manager within the station to actually make that effort work. So we came up with a strategy that we call Recruit to View. That we wanted to initiate broad engagement across all of the newsrooms, from the main anchors, the Mets, the reporters, but really start utilizing that broad scale staff from a standpoint of allowing the web producers to actually be producers and not just typists, of getting the stories in 30 minutes before they go on air. And so we really started then going after, how do we make this work? Well, to back up a little bit, we also recognized that we had platforms that really didn't do too much in terms of showcasing our content at all. We are in the process of new mobile websites that are going to be launching here in 2 to 3 weeks. All news and weather apps are going to be launching in July. RFPs are done, and we're going to be redesigning all of our desktop websites, and they launch before the end of the year. It's a pretty aggressive schedule, but it's something that we absolutely had to do in terms of being able to make this effort work. So we figured we got the platform situation under control. So we go back to Recruit to View after that, and we came up with a posting schedule, and it was a guideline. It was something that each station could customize with respect to when they were doing their newscasts, be they 4 a.m., 5 a.m., whatever. But we put together a 40 post schedule. And this was solely for social media. We then also engaged and purchased a management tool, a social media management tool, that we've now since dumped, and we're getting another one because it wasn't robust enough for what we really needed it to do. But it allows us to have point people within each station create a post tailored for Facebook, tailored for Twitter, and their account is associated with multiple accounts, so it's one post and it broadcasts out to maybe 6 or 7. It can be on talent pages, it can be on the main station. What we found, though, is someone here said quality, not quantity. We realized that people were just going through the motions. and they were making a post because it was their time slot. Not really a good post or even a post about an engaging story. So we kind of realized we have to go back even more, be a little bit more top-down. Yeah, it makes some waves, but we have to set forth those best practices extremely clearly as we go. We were even doing Facebook posts that weren't linking back to the station, to the page with the story on it. Well, we don't make money on Facebook. You know, we were fragmenting our audience from there to where we really need it to be. You know, it's a schedule that has a lot of moving parts. The biggest challenge with it is we do rely heavily on the legacy anchor talent. They're the ones that the viewers are going to be able to have that connection with more in some instances than the station as a whole. But they're the ones that are least likely to go on to a Facebook or a Twitter. Frankly, they're scared of it in some instances. So how do we get them engaged? We started using some video apps. Videolicious was one that we started using that would allow, you know, production quality to some degree, not great, but, you know, where you could put lower thirds on it. I mean, you could actually kind of make it look like it was something that came out of the EDIA system that we use. But we would get them to do video posts. They're used to being on the camera, and this was a way that we could get them engaged into the recruit to view process. Seems to be working pretty well in most instances. Then we started looking at the content itself. We realized that we have to go back and really do some digital storytelling training. We do a lot of copy and pasting of our on-air rundowns into our stories. And when you have a mobile web or an app product that does not have an embedded video within the story, that supporting mechanism for what the written word is, you lose a lot of context. So we really have to go back and make those stories a little bit more long form than what we are. We're actually too short, I think, overall on the Raycom side. We're going for longer content, but maybe with an abridged version on the phone side that will then kind of be that hook, but then move everybody over into a larger scale story if they're interested. And then the other thing that we're doing is we're broadening outside of news from being a news-centric organization. We have a lot of opportunity through our news production stations where they do content a lot that we don't leverage online. The video is already there. There are probably 5 or 6 digital channels that we can put together just very, very quickly just to showcase, and we're looking to do those as kind of a digital-only concept right now, just so that we can focus on the mobile side. Anyway, I'm way early, but does anybody have any questions, want to dive into anything more in depth?
How do you train your sales department to sell what you've got?
We have in Charlotte, North Carolina, I guess you could it's a group where we do a lot of recruiting out of colleges, and they have internships, and that's kind of our feeder farm that goes out to the stations as we go. But constantly doing the training with the necessary tools for the digital sellers to be able to go out there and, first of all, they need to be made aware of the tools that we have. I mean, so few of them, they're not. So we just need to have an all-inclusive knowledge about what we have to offer.
Do you have separate sales forces or?
No, they're combined. We do have one individual that kind of heads up the whole digital side, and they will go out with the on-air person, the regular broadcast seller, and kind of work that deal together. And we've come up with that blended compensation package to where it's workable for all of them.
How does Hearst and Journal Broadcast do it? Do you have 2 separate sales forces, or do you have a combined sales force?
Sure. Yeah, we have a blend at Journal. So in some of our markets where we have larger digital marketing budgets, we do
Yeah, at our end, we do have dedicated sales staff, but they also serve training role for the rest of the sales staff, so everybody at each station knows that.
Okay, follow to that for everybody. Do you have, by age segmentation, do you have a sales approach so that you are starting to see age segmentation for mobile users versus your standard broadcast viewer? I.e. younger viewers, younger users, which is, I think, what our strategy, the overall strategy for a lot of companies is if we go on mobile, we're going to get millennials.
I don't think we're doing that right now.
Do you see any of that break taking place?
I do.
Do you? Mm-hmm. I mean, traditional evening news audiences have been older.
Correct.
Older skewing, network nightly news, you can just tell by the kind of advertisers that are there. But so I'm kind of curious whether larger broadcast groups are starting to see that and whether you'll make investments in terms of the content you're putting there and in terms of the sponsors you're going to try to develop.
Yes. We would try to, we try to reach out to the millennials very much on the social side. That's the effort that we're trying to get them back over. But they typically always go to the mobile side based on the data that we've got. So from that content perspective, some of those vertical channels that we're doing, they're more geared toward that younger demographic that we would expect to be there in the hope that it really actually becomes a sponsored content section. It's not reliant on your standard 300, 250 or anything, in terms of just the banner ads, but really fully engaged sponsored content.
Other questions? You're also working in Tucson, aren't you, to work on a sort of consolidated sort of digital sales and content production team? Can you talk a little bit about that, or is that under wraps?
It's kind of under wraps.
Well, it was, and now it's not. Never mind.
And then an additional, and he mentioned the 24/7 hub that we work a lot with CNN on. The idea behind it was that would be the one place where national and international stories would be pipelined out to all the stations. And we provide that for all of Raycom as well as a couple of other media organizations. But we're also going to pull in a social media component of that, because with our new social media tool, the management tool, we can actually post to station pages using their URL, but we don't really have to change anything, so we don't have to rewrite it or manually go in. So even from that side, that we figured, let's give it a try, because we can kind of circle back on some of those posts that the station may have done earlier in the day, but people had missed, so.
All right.
Okay.
Joe Rooney from Raycom. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.